Hi, my name is Courtney, and I would like to bring you today's history. March 26, 1997, Heaven's Gate cult members found dead. Following an anonymous tip, police entered the mansion in Ranchero Santa Fe, an exclusive suburb of San Diego, California, and discovered 39 victims of a mass suicide. The deceased, 21 women and 18 males in various ages, were all found lying peacefully in matching dark clothing and Nike sneakers with no noticeable signs of blood or trauma. It was later revealed that the men and women were members of the Heaven's Gate religious cult, whose leader preached that suicide would allow them to leave their bodily containers and enter an alien spacecraft hidden behind the Hale-Bopp comet. The cult was led by Marshall Applewhite, a music professor who, after surviving a near-death experience in 1972, was recruited into the cult by one of his nurses, Bonnie Lou Nettles, in 1975. Applewhite and Nettles persuaded a group of 20 people from Oregon to abandon their families and professions and move to eastern Colorado, where they promised that there would be an extraterrestrial spacecraft that would take them to the kingdom of heaven. Nettles, who called herself T, and Applewhite, who took on the name Doe, explained that the human bodies were merely containers and that could be abandoned in favor of a higher physical existence. As the spacecraft never arrived, membership in Heaven's Gates diminished, and in 1985, Bonnie Lou Nettles, Applewhite's sexless partner, died. During the early 1990s, the cult resurfaced as Applewhite began recruiting new members. Soon after the 1995 discovery of the comet Hale-Bopp, the Heaven's Gates members became convinced that an alien spacecraft was on its way to Earth, hidden from human detection behind the comet. In October 1996, Applewhite rented a large home in Ranchero Santa Fe, explaining to the owner that the group was made up of Christian-based angels. Applewhite advocated sexual abstinence, and several male cult members followed his example by undergoing castration operations. In 1997, as part of a 4,000-year-old orbit of the sun, the comet Hale-Bopp passed near Earth in one of its most impressive astronomical events of the 21st century. In late March 1997, as Hale-Bopp reached its closest distance to Earth, Applewhite and 38 of his followers drank a lethal mixture of phenobarbital and vodka, and they laid down to die, hoping to leave their bodily containers, enter the alien spacecraft, and pass through Heaven's Gates into a higher experience. It was one of the strangest and saddest headlines in 1997. Inside a San Diego mansion, authorities discovered the remains of 39 members of the Masonic religious sect, quickly dubbed suicide cult, known as Heaven's Gate. Laying under purple shrouds, the deceased were dressed in identical dark clothing, wearing white Nike sneakers, and with $5 bills and a roll of quarters stuffed in their pockets. Over 2 days, they had all committed suicide by ingesting a toxic cocktail of barbiturates and alcohol. As details emerged about the group's beliefs, a mashup of evangelicalist Christians, New Age practices, and UFOs, Heaven's Gate and its eccentric leader, known to followers as Doe, became fob for late-night TV shows. They were in uniforms, and they were apparently into Star Trek. They were all wearing Nikes, and it all seemed too bizarre to believe, says Benjamin Zeller, a scholar of religious movements and the author of Heaven's Gates, an American UFO religion. But in his book, Zeller argues that Heaven's Gates wasn't necessarily a crazy Amberonish it was made out to be, nor was it a suicide cult. It was a group of spiritual seekers who latched onto popular trends in American culture, conspiracy theories, apocalyptic beliefs, and a fusion of science religion that ultimately led to their tragic end. The origins of Heaven's Gate stretches back to 1972, where a nurse named Bonnie Lou Nettles met a seminary dropout named Marshall Herff Applewhite. Both Nettles and Applewhite were experiencing spiritual crisis, says Heller. Nettles was going through a divorce, and Applewhite, an evangelicalist Christian, felt like God was calling him to a new vocation. The two became spiritual soulmates. Nettle claimed to be in communication with spirit guides and angels and practiced astrology and yoga. Applewhite sought answers in the Bible, particularly in the book of Revelations, which foretold the events that will herald the end of the world. Together, Nettles and Applewhite received their own revelation. The Bible, when it talked about God, Jesus, and angels, was actually talking about extraterrestrial and superior race of aliens who appeared to us as gods. In the last days, the aliens would arrive in a spaceship, destroy or recycle the Earth, and save the faithful who were ready to graduate to the next level. By 1975, Nettles and Applewhite were fixtures in the alternative spiritual scene in California and Oregon. They opened a New Age store and began offering classes where they would share their message. This earthly life was an intermediate realm where we learn to battle evil, bad aliens, transcend our human bodies, and transform into perfect beings. Over time, Nettles and Applewhite received more revelations. They came to believe that they themselves were aliens who had been sent to Earth to prepare humankind for the end. Nettles and Applewhite changed their names to T and Doe, and the class took on a more Masonic feel. Members were encouraged to become celibate and wear special clothing modeled after Star Trek uniforms. Even with their unusual beliefs and their odd dress, Zeller takes issue with the class being called a cult, or says that the members were brainwashed. If we chose to use those terms, he said, then the same could be said for almost all religion. They acted like a religion, says Zeller. They had beliefs and practices and rituals and prayers, and they talked about the meaning of life and the end of the world, and what happens after death. They looked like a religion, but like some other religions, they had teachings in which I would not promote or accept. In 1985, Bonnie Lou Nettles died of cancer. It shook the group's belief system to the core, since members previously thought that they would be physically transformed into perfect beings while alive. After Nettles' death, a new idea emerged. Members would have to shed their imperfect human bodies, at which point their conscience would be transferred into the next level in their alien bodies. Like T and Doe, the members increasingly saw themselves as alien visitors, temporarily inhabiting human bodies. Like other fringe groups, they developed elaborate conspiracy theories to explain why so few people had been accepting their message. They didn't call it the deep state, but they believed that the government was allied with the media and corporations to hide the truth from people, says Zeller. That space aliens were real and the government is working with the bad aliens known as Luciferites. In the early 1990s, Applewhite posted his first online writing, first to Usenet message board, and eventually to their own website called Heaven's Gate. The response, Zeller says, was unfortunately negative, which led Applewhite and other members to slowly give up on convincing the rest of the world to prepare for the Earth's imminent recycling. Instead, the group looked for signs in extraterrestrial arrival, which was found in the 1995 discovery of the Hale-Bopp comet. Astrologists calculate that the comet, which was 1,000 times brighter than Halley's Comet, would pass closest to the Earth in March of 1997. Applewhite came to believe that the Hale-Bopp comet was the perfect cover to hide the companion's alien spacecraft, and when it arrived, the members of Heaven's Gates would be ready. On March 22nd and 23rd of 1997, the members of Heaven's Gate took what they believed was their final and necessary steps to escape the Earth's destruction and graduate to the Kingdom of Heaven. To excel alien bodies. In the end, 39 people, including Applewhite, killed themselves in the hopes of consolidating their bodies and exceeding to heaven to meet the passing spaceship. The stunning the rest of the world was left with hours of video recordings and Applewhite's excessive writing on the group's website, including a page titled "Our Position Against Suicide." Ultimately, the group concluded that the true meaning of suicide is to turn against the next level when it is being offered to you. When the Kingdom of Heaven was offered, they took it. Members said they joined of their own free will, and Zeller says that they recorded exit statements. They wrote autobiographies explaining why they joined the movement. If we are going to call it brainwashing, then I don't know what we are going to call free will.